So good afternoon, guys, and welcome back to our webinar. So in today's session, afternoon session, Sir John Murcia will be talking about the basic, intermediate, and other advanced statistical application in accounting studies. Yan. So guys, mag-recap lang ako guys ng nangyari kaninang morning. So good afternoon, guys, and welcome back. Okay, so live stream yun siya guys. Also pala guys, we are live on YouTube. So if ever your Zoom is not working properly, then you can go to our live stream. And the link of the live stream is, wait, I will send it guys. Sa Zoom group chat guys, the YouTube live stream is posted. Okay guys, so mag-recap lang ako guys sa nangyari kaninang morning. Para sa mga bago lang dito, you will get an idea of what happened in the morning session. Okay, so Dr. Murcia has discussed about first, it is easy to be original in research. So yun siya guys. And the examples of the steps on how to be original in research is sinabi ni Sir. First is continuing a previously original piece of work. Second is carrying out original work designed by the supervisor. And last example is showing originality in testing somebody else's idea as long as you have permission of the person. So yun siya guys, ang first na pinag-usapan ni Sir, which is the 15 steps in creating originality in your research. Yan siya guys. So siyempre, nahihirapan din tayo, anong problem ba ang ating gustong itackle? Since sabi ni Sir is, we should have a different perspective din on what unique or innovative research problem we want. Okay, so ang next nag-discuss ni Sir is about academic writing. And he emphasized about the audience, tone, language, content, perspective, and aim of academic writing. So yun siya guys. And third is, shinare din ni Sir sa atin ang kanyang secret gem in research. So ito yung Manchester Academic Phrase Bank. So shinare niya sa atin ang link kung saan siya naghahanap ng mga phrases in order for his research to be completed. Yan siya guys. And it will serve as a guide for us then as amateurs in research. So para di rin tayo maguguluhan kung saan tayo magsisimula. Yan siya guys. And next nag-share nung morning guys is gumawa si Sir ng research about COVID-19. Nag-start siya April. And pinakita rin niya yung mga graphs. Ano yun? Pinakita rin niya yung graphs na ginawa niya dun sa research niya. And dun sa graph is makikita natin yung mga different outcomes if ever the Philippines will not have strict lockdowns, and if the people are lax in dealing with the COVID pandemic. So yun siya guys. So ilang yung points? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yun yung 4 points ang i-discuss ni Sir last kaninang morning. Yan. So that's it for my summary sa morning session. And wait, check ko muna si Sir guys kung nandito na ba siya. Okay, tingin ko wala pa siya. Yan, gina-check ko ang Zoom participants. Okay, wala pa rin ang pangalan ni Sir. Okay, so dahil wala pa si Sir, tatanungin ko muna kayo. So guys, kumusta inyong lunch? Nakakain ba kayo ng mabuti? And Also, I want to know, ano ba yung mga kinain ninyo for sa inyong lunch? Yan. If ever may response kayo, guys, just answer in the Zoom group chat. Yan. Sige, guys. Ano nga ba yung mga kinain kanina? Okay, waiting for some responses. Yan, sabi ni Karil Rose, bread daw ang kanyang kinain. Oh, parang ano lang, breakfast lang. Kumain naman po, breakfast meal lang yung lunch kanina. So brunch. Brunch na kay Edsel. Kay Jonah May, wala pa ako nag-lunch. Mag-lunch ka na, Jonah. Kasi you will need it in our session. Sabi ni Sofia Abenza is Pansit Canton. Yan. Tagal-tagal na ako nakakain yan. And sabi pa dito, sabi ni Marjorie Ayn Tabanda, fish and rice. Yan, healthy. Healthy, healthy. Kay Bianca Marine Bula, chicken and rice. Nice. Si Daisy Mustula, diet daw, diet. Ooh. And kay Clariza Joyce Hervas, tubig lang po. Tubig lang. Di makakabusog ang tubig. Samahan mo ng prutas. Yan, okay na yan. Princess Criza De Leon, sabi niya na private chat, oats. Mila oats. And kay Claire, sa ating president, bacon for brunch. Kain ka rin ng gulay, press. Kay Edsel, yung fruits lang po, sapat. Bacon for brunch. Yan, so, nice, nice. Kung ako tatanungin nyo, guys, ang kinain ko kanina is, naghanda ang mama ko ng shrimps at bariles with rice na rin yan, syempre. Yan, so, less ano muna tayo ngayon less meat since ano na pag puro red meat is di rin healthy for the body, kaya seafoods muna tayo ngayon. Yan. Okay, so glad na nakakain din yung iba. Pero sa mga wala pa nakakain, kumain na kayo. Kasi di yan maganda pa nagpalipas ng gutom. Yan siya, guys. So, wala pa rin si sir. Okay, so see. My second question na naman ako sa inyo, guys, while waiting for sir. Ano ba yung mga activities na ginawa ninyo noong quarantine? Yan. Since marami naman tayong oras, since sa bahay naman tayo, online class, I think na may time rin tayo for other stuffs. And I want to know kung ano yung mga in-explore ninyo or na-discover ninyo sa inyong self while in the house, in your house, home, or saan ba, province. Wari, tinapos nyo ba yung mga books noon na hindi nyo pa binasa, mga fictional books, yan, dahil sa kakabasa ng accounting na busy. Ngayong pandemic is meron na kayong time sa pagbasa, yan ba? Sige, if ever may response kayo, chat it on the Zoom group chat. So guys, yun. Sige, I will be waiting for your response. Yan. Okay, so wala pa rin si sir. Ano kaya si sir? Yan, so, marami nang nag-chat ngayon Sabi ni Karil, Rose Individuado, tulog lang kuya tapos mag-watch ng movies as usual. Mabuti. Tulog lang yun dahil marami tayong time matulog ngayon. Lagi lang sa bahay. Sabi ni, ang dami nang nag-chat. Sabi ni Edsel Dosono, Netflix, YouTube, gawaing bahay, saka Wessing lang. Wissing, Wessing. Sorry. Wissing lang po. Netflix. And to rin kay Marjorie Aine Tabanda. Netflix lang kuya, kay drama, ganun. Ako rin, nag-K-drama rin ako, pero ngayon, anime pa ako. K-drama lang po. Kay Danilane Fole Serapika, TikTok. Yan. TikToker pala to si Danilane. Si Bakit? ULO, ulo. Nalunod sa ulo. Nalunod sa ulo. Sige, Abi kung ano man yan. Laban lang. Sofia Patricia, same, K-drama. Guys, Mayo Mona. Sabi niya, YouTube and Facebook lang. Wala laging nagsabi na, ayun, si Glidel Bahado, study lang po. Yan, so more time tayo mag-study ngayon. Sa bahay lang rin tayo. Gawa rin ng research. Sipag. Yan, Jud. Sabi ni Michelle M. Makadayat, jogging. Yan, so dahil quarantine rin, kailangan natin mag-exercise sa ating bahay. Yan, galawin din natin ating mga katawan. Since lagi lang tayo nakaupo, online class, kaharap sa mga computer natin, minsan nga, whole day tayo. Yan, okay, so that's it for my time. I will give it now to Sir John Viane Morcia. Go, sir.
Hi everyone, sorry I'm late. No, I just transferred to a better venue considering that my internet connection in UM is quite erratic, and I'm here in a coffee shop because you like coffee. Now, it's a continuation of our lecture no, on basic, intermediate, and advanced statistics. And it seems that most of the students, most of the participants here are beginners when it comes to statistics. So might as well I'll wrap everything into one concise presentation. I'm not so sure if I still remember the Teka. Uh, I'll update you with the statistics software that you can download. So download the software from https://tinyurl.center. Okay. Okay, so let's continue our lecture. Share screen. So guys, research is essential for the understanding of our profession. But apparently, you can understand research if in case you also have skills in understanding numbers and statistics. Statistics is just a discipline of mathematics which was not actually given so much attention during ancient times, during the Renaissance. But when there comes a period that industrial revolution kicks in, and then there was priority for, frequencies, occurrences of accidents, number of people that reports to work, how many hours does it take for a specific product or service to be finished or something like that. The statistical discipline has improved and it was accepted in industries, and for decades and for after 100 of years, there comes this profession in which we're going to crack numbers, we're going to deal with numbers for us to understand a situation or a phenomenon. And statistics is an act of quantification of phenomenon. It's an act of understanding how we quantify phenomenon and how to measure them in such a way that we can understand. For a start, we're going to discuss basic statistics, and the software is found. I'm not so sure if this software is gonna work, but the software can be downloaded from tinyurl.com. Sorry, it's supposedly um, slash EFA in caps seminar. I'll check it first before I'll share it with you in case it's still working. Okay, that's good. Okay, software. It's actually working. Okay, so here's the link. Download the software folder from this link. So tinyurl.com/EFA in capital letters seminar. So in research, the usual question that bugs us is, how do I begin? Kaya lang tayo magsisimula if in case magre-research tayo. So sometimes this has this has been the usual problem of anyone in doing research, and I know that you feel the same way. In fact, it took me a semester before I finally understand what my research proposal is, or what research will I engage that can be considered interesting, relevant, as well as measurable enough for me to do, or manageable enough for me to do. So we begin with an understanding of the principles of research as well as the principles of statistics. Because in qualitative research sometimes, which is beyond my purview, you can only effectively understand qualitative research when you have quite a training or understanding on quantitative research. Because the qualitative one emerged during the time that quantitative was the most common approach in doing research. And when we say quantitative, that deals with numbers. And dealing with numbers require us to use statistics. Hence our lecture today. Okay, so we're not going to dwell with qualitative anymore because first and foremost, here are the steps in writing a research. So you identify the topic, nasabi ko rin kanina, literature review, then select the variables of interest. Your variables of interest should not be generated by you. No, it's not going to you're not going to handpick them, but rather you're going to check the related literature that you have if ano yung variables na interesting, or what are the variables that were discussed or covered by your literature review. Then research hypothesis. So of course, once you've chosen your variables, we have this research hypothesis. We're going to test whether there is a significant relationship or there is a significant difference, or say there are variables that might significantly influence your another variable. So we're going to discuss each of these statistical tools later. So research hypothesis is possible when you use inferential statistics only. So there are two types of common statistical approaches. We have the descriptive statistics and we have the inferential statistics. In hypothesis testing, you're only required to use inferential statistics. You're not going to test hypothesis using the descriptive one. Okay, so excuse me, can you still hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Next one, really, palobat na yung aking headset. Anyway, next one is designing the study. Okay, perfect. So designing the study is one of the major concerns in a quantitative research. In fact, research design also includes determination of the method or approach that you're going to do. So when you hypothesize something, there are corresponding designs or research approaches that you're going to consider as a justification of your approach. Next. Okay, power analysis. So power analysis is determination of appropriate if an appropriate sample size has a specific power or has a specific what we say, if your sample size is sufficient as well as acceptable in terms of its effect. So considering na we cannot say na based on our computations sa statistics or sa ating sample size, imagine having to select 400 respondents out of millions of people who are living here in Davao City. Now, it can be sufficient based on a formula, but is its power analysis sufficient enough? Does the power analysis says that 400 which is sufficient is acceptable. So power analysis is usually required in scientific studies like research, but most undergraduate research don't do power analysis. So for now, let's skip this. We're going to this global na ako. Okay, sandali lang ha. Okay, naririnig niyo pa ako?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so nagbalik na sa laptop ang ako ang audio. Nalobat na akong earpods. Anyway, let's continue. So of course, after that, after you do that, you write your proposal. So dapat, kanang inyong literature review or the literature review that you have, it has to be intensive enough. It has to be at least sufficient enough para if in case you're going to write your proposal, at least during your proposal stage, you're just going to to tie all the essential parts of your chapters 1 and 2 and 3 so that you can do proposal defense. Writing proposal actually requires you to consider your background of the study, your theoretical framework and conceptual framework, your hypothesis and statement of the problem, significance of the study, including the variables of interest, which requires you to have related literature, and then the design of the study as well as the methodologies that you're going to use. So after that, design data tools. Kung ano yung specific na instrument na gagamitin natin. Those data tools will be used in data collection. And then, of course, committees. Kailangan, dapat you present this in your panel. And afterwards, after getting approval from the panel that you're allowed to do data collection, you're going to set up your spreadsheet, no? Or code book. Diyan ninyo i-encode ang data natin. Once you set up the spreadsheet or the code book, you encode your data and then you perform statistical analysis. Statistics actually comes here. So your statistical analysis is your way of interpreting of analyzing data based on your specific problems. And then you produce graphs, slides, and posters, and you write a paper or a manuscript. Now, pray tell, who has interest here in statistics? Sino dito ang may penchant or yung gustong-gusto talagang statistics since senior high school ninyo? Mga peta. Anyone who has an interest in statistics here? Sir, accounting students kami, hindi kami statisticians. That's the usual thing na tayo. Hindi masyado, no? Of course. Pero mind you, it's one of the least subscribed profession, but it's one of the most lucrative jobs in the world. No? When you analyze data, only a few of us actually ventured in this. In fact, I'm a marketing graduate. In fact, my background is more in market statistics or market analysis. Then I ventured on higher or quantitative techniques as well as higher statistical models, and that's where my career in statistics was actually improved. Now, it's understandable that most of us are confused by statistics. In fact, ang pinaka-common lang yun nato na understanding with statistics are those descriptive ones, because those are the most usually commonly used na mga tools in our real life. However, because of most people's they're adamant when it comes to learning statistics. Nagiging tool siya by those propagandists in order for them to spread malicious information. So it has become a machinery of the media in order to beguile us. So that's why we need to at least have a focus or understanding of basic statistics so that we can actually, contribute to the discussion in politics, in our profession, as well as in our daily lives. So if in case you're confused with statistics, hindi kayo nag-iisa. We started with that, and it's actually very normal. Okay, next one. So our goal here is to understand why a particular statistical test was used for your research project. Yan naman ang ating purpose, di ba? If in case, ganito yung problem mo, ganito yung instrument mo, ano yung appropriate statistical tool na gagamitin? That's the usual question that I receive from undergraduates. Sir, hindi ko alam kung anong statistical test gagamitin nito. Kinopya ko na lang ang statistics ng past output sa library. And then they found out na hindi pala pwede yung sa kanila. So we're going to address this concern. Next one is, to interpret results. So I think this lecture would last for like an hour and 30 minutes or so. So bear with me. If in case you want to record this one or you want to take notes, just take notes because this is very essential with your research in accounting. And then to understand, evaluate, and present your results. That's the most important. So after you interpret, and then you display, and then you present your results. Okay. So meron ditong list of free statistics software. Okay. So just a sec, habang tumatawag yung COO namin. No. Hello po. Te. It's available, but you might want to use this link to download the software that we have. So, yeah. Let's go back. So before choosing a statistical test, this includes the following. So figure out the variable type. Ito yung pinaka-importante na hindi siya usually alam ng mga researchers. So you need to figure out what variable are you using. So we can have scales of measurement. It's either a qualitative variable or a quantitative variable. So figure out your goal. So what do you want to do? So are you going to simply measure? Are you just going to compare groups? Or are you interested to measure relationships among variables? So you need to figure out which suits you better. Okay, so here are scales of measurement. So for one, we have qualitative variables and we have quantitative variables. Under the qualitative variables are nominal variables. We also have ordinal variables. For quantitative variables, we have interval variable and we have a ratio variable. I'll be discussing these variables later. So when we say nominal, that means it's discrete. From the name itself, nominal, that means the variable is measured in terms of names or categories. So it's the simplest scale of measurement and they have no numerical value. Yes, wala siyang numerical value and they have categories. So for example, if in case mag-fill up kayo ng biodata or ng resume, there is a question there or there could be a question there to indicate your religion. So religion can be Roman Catholic, it can be Islam, it can be born again Christian, it can be Hindu, it can be Buddhism. So you're going to select one choice out of the lots of choices under the variable religion. Now, if in case magsa-statistical analysis tayo, sometimes softwares want you to assign a specific code for that category. So ang ginagawa ko, under religion, I usually write 1 for a specific religion, 2 for a specific religion, 3 for a specific religion, and so on. So for example, Islam was the religion of that respondent. So if in case i-click niya ito, automatic magko-code yan ng 2. Kasi pangalawa siya sa listing. So I'll show you an example of a spreadsheet later on how you're going to arrange those variables. Okay, so examples are gender, like male and female. They are categories. Okay, race, if in case they are from the United States, if in case they're Indians, if in case they are Australians or something. So marital status, single, married, widow, widower, separated. Uh, and then we also have whether or not Schumer is recurred. So it can be a yes, it can be a no. So yes and no is still nominal. And then dead or alive. So for example, is the rat dead? Two choices, yes or no. So if in case it's if in case it's yes, then that means it can be coded as 1, and a no can be coded as 0 or 2. So anything that can be measured in terms of categories is known as nominal. Okay, let's proceed. So ordinal scale. So for ordinal scale, variables are in categories but with underlying order to their values. So same pa rin siya sa nominal variables. However, there seems to be a sequence or order of the choices. So it could be mangutana sa imuha kung, like for example, what is your kanaganing award? What is your what is your what's the level of your academic award when you graduated? So were you the valedictorian, salutatorian, first honorable mention, second honorable, and whatnot? So if in case you have those choices from valedictorian, salutatorian, first honorable, second honorable, it seems to be in order. Or if in case you will be asked no kung ikapila ka sa kuan, ikapila ka sa inyong manag-igsuon. Okay. Anyway, can I ask no? This is just a sort of icebreaker. Can I ask? Sorry. Hello. Can I ask anyone to just chat to me the English translation of Pang-ilan ka sa magkakapatid? In the chat box.
What's the English of pang-ilan ka sa magkakapatid?
Yes. Can you chat me your answer for that?
What is your
If you're going to translate the Tagalog sentence, pang-ilan ka sa magkakapatid, how do you translate that to English? Okay.
Yes.
What is your position in your family? Okay. Medyo may nakakuha na ng tamang answer. The correct answer is how do you fit in that order?
How do you fit in that order daw ang tama?
In what order do you fit in that category? This is too complicated. So you just say how do you fit in that order? For example, how many brothers and sisters do you have? Sorry, how many brothers and sisters do you have? Like for example, you say you have 5 sisters and 1 brother, and then you will be asked by someone, how do you fit in that order? And then you will say, I'm the eldest. Okay, so that's the correct answer. Now, that kind of question, if you will be asked in a resume or if in case you will be asked in a survey questionnaire about your order of birth amongst all the siblings that you have or amongst the number of children in your family, and then you respond fourth, that means it can be coded as 4 in case we're doing statistical analysis. Any categories with a specific order like first choice, second choice, third choice, fourth choice, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, or strongly disagree, disagree, neither agree or disagree, agree, strongly agree, or very poor, poor, moderate, good, excellent. So with that kind of categories, these are ordinal scales. or ordinary variables. I'm going I'm going to cancel my name. Let me fix my audio first. Let me fix my audio first. It seems that I have a problem with. Okay, so we're back. Okay, next one is interval scale. So an interval scale is a quantitative data, subtract values. You cannot multiply and divide the values because you have no true 0 point. In which case, an example of this is temperatures. So 0 degrees indicates point when water will freeze, not an absence of warmth. It does not have a true 0 point. That means it can take negative values. Next one. The ratio scale. So it's a continuous scale. So a ratio scale is a quantitative data with true 0. So you can add, subtract, multiply, and divide. So what are the examples? These examples include age. Wala may negative 36 age na years old. No? So from 0 up to infinity. So your body weight, your blood pressure, your length of hospital stay, your operating room time, the number of minutes for you to drink a coffee. So those are ratio scales. But temperature, one that has a true negative, that doesn't have a true 0 value, or true 0, and they can actually take negative forms, and that's interval scale. But for ratio scale or the continuous variable, we can actually have no negatives for this. Okay. Now, here's the thing. So if in case you're dealing with nominal variables and ordinal variables, or nominal data and ordinal data, you're actually using non-parametric statistics. And for interval and ratio, you're going to use parametric statistics. Okay, so we can have some examples of non-parametric statistics later, as well as parametric statistics. So we have two branches of statistics. We have descriptive one, which actually includes the following. So frequencies and percents, measures of the middle or the median, and measures of variation, which includes standard deviation. And then we have inferential statistics. We can have non-parametric statistics and parametric statistics. Between the two, if you want to test a hypothesis, only inferential statistics is allowed or is used, because descriptive statistics is used to characterize a sample or a population. Or in fact, if you wanted to establish significant relationships, what you're going to do is just to use inferential ones. So here's the first step in analyzing data. So the goal of descriptive statistics is to communicate results without generalizing beyond sample to a larger group. When you're actually using descriptive statistics, this is the most common, this is the first step that you're going to do in case you're going to do your analysis. So the good thing about this is that it can actually help us to understand or characterize our population. So una, if in case gusto natin malaman ang distribution ng certified public accountants in a survey, so if in case we wanted to determine the distribution of respondents according to sex, according to age, according to years of experience, according to educational attainment, so it's possible. So here's an example of descriptive statistics. We have frequencies and percentages. For frequencies, they are the number of times a specific value of an observation occurs. So basically, it's just a count. So for each category, we need to calculate the percentage of the sample. So if in case we wanted to determine what is the percentage of smokers from non-smokers, what is the percentage or the representation of smokers from the total sample? So we have 26 smokers here. We have 79 non-smokers, a total of 105. We have missing data of 22, so we're going to use valid percent. So between smokers and non-smokers, we found out that smokers constitute 24.8% of the entire of the number of valid respondents who participated in the survey, while 75.2% represents those who are non-smokers. Okay, that easy. Okay, so measures of the middle or the central tendency. So of course, this is the most common, weighted mean or the average. So the average score or sum of all values divided by the number of values. So it's the most common measure, but one thing seems to be the Waterloo or the weakness of these statistical analysis. It can actually be influenced by outliers. So I'll give you an example. I'll open an Excel. Say, share screen. Let's go try this. So the mean score, say we have 10 students. So we have 10 students. Okay, student number 1, 2, 3, 4. And then stress score 1. And we have stress score 2. Okay, so in a scale of 1 to 10, the 10 respondents or students actually rated their current stress levels. And say we have like 5, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4, 6, 5, 4, 2. And the other one, another group of students has like 2, 2, 4, 5, 4, 10, 3, 4. Okay, so how do we compute the mean score? So mean score is usually computed as the sum of all of these scores divided by the number of respondents. So in Excel, we usually compute this as average, open and close parenthesis, close that one. Then, okay. So as you can see, the average score, the average stress score for the first group of students is 3.9. The second one is also 3.9. However, here's a catch, because once we compute the standard deviation here, stdev, open, we have a different standard deviation. Why is this so? Considering that in the first 10 students, it seems that most of their stress scores lie on the 3.9 and 4.0. That's why their standard deviation is just smaller, because it means that the stress scores among these 10 students seem to be consistent. However, with the other 10 students, you can see that most of them are just experiencing low to very low stress score, except for this student, except for student number 6. So that kind of one, that kind of data is actually known as outlier. It can actually influence the overall mean score. It might not be it might not be evident here, but when you see the standard deviation, it's a lot bigger compared to this one. So caution has to be made when we describe a specific sample by checking if there are outliers. Okay, let's go back. Okay, next one is median. So median is the non-parametric counterpart of the measure of central tendency. So the median is different because we're going to arrange the values from smallest to highest, and then we're going to check which is the middle value. So this is very easy if in case our number of respondents or observations is an odd number, because you're going to simply follow the formula total number of responses divided by 2. Total number of responses divided by 2. And then if in case the whole number will be n.5, you're going to just eliminate 0.5 and you proceed to the next value. So a good example is that, for example, for 9, number of your respondents is 11, for example. If you have 11 respondents, we divide out into 2, that means we get 5.5. That means the median of that is 6. Okay, so if in case our number is 1, 2, 3, our values are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. The median value of that is 6. In the case of an even number, what we're going to do is to get the 2 middle values after you rearrange them from the smallest to the highest, and then you divide them to 2, and that will be the median score. It's considered median score, or the median is the 50th percentile. So it's half above, half below. And we use such statistical analysis, or we use that when the data are asymmetrical or skewed. So when the data is asymmetrical or skewed, the use of mean score is not warranted, considering that it could result, it could be, it could give us a wrong information afterwards. So better yet, instead of using non-parametric ones, parametric ones, we use parametrics. Instead of resorting to parametric analysis or statistical analysis, might as well that you resort to non-parametric ones. So this one, measures of standard deviation or variation. So kanina, kinumpute po natin yung formula for mean and standard deviation. So balikan natin, no? So this one. So the formula for mean is just the average of all the values in Excel here. And for standard deviation, it's just the same thing, but you don't want to type average, but it's STDEV. So that's the standard deviation. Okay. So the other one is standard error. So standard error is is the standard deviation divided by the square root of the number of values. In this case, standard deviation is the basis in the computation of standard error. In fact, in statistical analysis, especially when you do correlation, t-test, and one-way analysis of variance and regression, which are all parametric inferential statistics, the use of standard error is warranted. For standard deviation, it's most commonly used when you describe or you compute mean averages, because that will tell us the variation of our data. So we also have variance. So that's the square of the standard deviation. And next one is the range. It's the difference between the largest and the smallest value. The most common among the four is standard deviation, because it gives us an impression of the skewness. It gives us the impression of the distribution of our data, if it's normal or not. Or it can give us an information whether or not it's consistent, or the responses of or the answers of your respondents are consistent. So for this one, we have a table of 1 to 100 as categories, and we have frequency and percentage. However, we can use that to compute the mean score. So we have 26 valid responses. We have a mean score of 19.62, and a standard error of the mean is 3.985. The standard deviation is 20.32. That means that the usual responses of the 26 is lying closely to 18, 19, and 20. The minimum is 1 and the maximum is 100. Having a standard deviation of 20.32 is already very large. That will give us an idea that the responses might be very small to very large values. So imagine from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it immediately jumped to 12, and then it immediately jumped to 45, then 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and 100. So it can actually cause us to have a very large standard deviation. Okay, our focus is more on the inferential statistics. So when we say inferential statistics, we're trying to investigate if whatever is existing in the sample could be existing for the entire population. So non-parametric test includes the use of analyzing nominal and ordinal variables. However, non-parametric test makes no assumptions about the data. So that means your data did not meet with the required assumptions like normality, representativeness, or the adequacy. So when your data is very few and then you have no assumptions whatsoever in the data, then the kind of inferential statistics that we're going to use is the non-parametric. Second one is the parametric test. For parametric test, we used for analyzing interval and ratio variables. So kanina, nakita natin na ang ratio at saka interval variables are quantitative variables. So they are the ones that take numbers as data. Kanina naman sa nominal and ordinal, they are either in categories or order. So those are not non-parametric ones. But for parametric, we're going to use interval and ratio variables. And here are the three assumptions, no, that we need to assume or that we need to meet if in case we're going to use parametric test. Unang-una, we should have normal distribution. Dapat, when we say normal distribution, that means your standard deviation is not too high. Second one is homogeneity of variance. So that means consistency of your standard deviations, which means that there should be no outliers or outliers have to be very minimal. And third one is independent observations. That means that the variable or your data will not be influenced by any other data that is not gathered or that is not part of your survey. So for example, these data have to be independent from any interference from other sources of data. So which test do I need to use? So first and foremost, step one, know the scale of measurement. Dapat alam mo kung nominal ba ito or ordinal ba ito or scale variable ba ito, like the continuous and the ratio and interval ba? So you need to identify those data. Second one is you know your goal. So if in case ang intention mo is, sir, interested ako na malaman kung ano ba ang kaibahan ng CPAs with non-CPAs in terms of quality of life. Or gusto kong malaman kung ano yung mga factors that might be related with quality of work life. Maganda yun. So we need to identify our goal because in every goal, there seems to be a specific statistical tool for that. Okay? Now, here are the key inferential statistics. So for example, if you want to measure the non-parametric association or relationship of variables, you're going to use Pearson chi-square test or the Fisher's exact test. So that's the non-parametric association or relationship test. If you want to compare two groups, if in case you want to compare two groups, you might want to you might want to use the parametric t-test. If you want to compare three or more groups, you might want to compare them using analysis of variance or ANOVA. Now, if you want to establish significant relationship of two or more variables, Then the parametric counterpart for that, if in case you're using numerical variable like a scaled variable or ratio and interval variables, you might want to use Pearson's correlation and linear regression analysis. Pearson correlation computes the relationship, while the linear regression computes for the significant influence of the variables to another variable. Say you wanted to determine the relationship and the influence of job satisfaction, um, work engagement, and transformational leadership of the boss of an accountant to the quality life of an accountant. So you might want to use Pearson's correlation and linear regression analysis for that. Let's continue. So probability and p-values. Probability and p-values are actually concerned with significance. Okay, so there might be a possibility that variables might not be significant, but there are variables that are significantly related with one another, or significantly, that makes them significantly different. So what is the indication that the statistic that we're computing is significant? It should be like the p-value or the sig value or the significance value has a p less than 0.05. Which means that dapat hindi siya equal, hindi siya greater than, it has to be less than 0.05 for you to check for you to say that there is a significant relationship, or there is a significant difference, or there is a significant influence. Okay, so I'll give you an example for that later. So a p less than 0.05, meaning to say that there is 1 in 20 or 5% chance that the variables are not related or the groups are not different. No? So you have a 95% certainty that this is okay or these are related, but there is also that 5% chance that they might not be related. So kumbaga, kung sa 100 chances na mamali ka, nakakay 5 chances na mamali ka o kalima. And 95% or 95 chances na tama. However, there are stricter statistics. So we have p less than 0.01 or the 99% confidence interval. Now, this is 1 in 100, or you only have 1% chance of error. So this kind of probability testing is applicable for medical studies because they seek perfection, almost perfection, in all their experiments. In fact, experimental studies have to use p less than 0.01 because it's a better statistic that can account for possible errors or to minimize those errors. Now, pag yun near perfection, so 1 in 1,000 chance, or there is less than 1% chance of error. So it's close to zero, or it's close to significance. So that means that there is almost no chance that you will commit an error in your statistic. Now, next one is research hypothesis. Again, a topic sentence can actually create speculations, or it can actually be a room for or a basis for you to identify problems or gaps in the literature. And those gaps in the literature, as well as your observations, can actually create research questions. Now, your research questions become your basis in crafting your statement of the problem. This research question is basically statement of the problem. Now, the research question is then the basis in creating your hypothesis. So when you say hypothesis, it's an educated guess. It's a scientific guess for you to test whether or not an occurrence is caused by a factor A or B or C or a combination of both, or a combination of these multiple variables. So for one, HO or the H sub 0 or H sub O is called null hypothesis. So with that, the null hypothesis states that it could predict no effect or no difference or no relationship. For example, you wanted to correlate or to investigate the relationship of leadership of your boss with your quality of life as a CPA. So what happens is that your null hypothesis should state that there is no significant relationship between leadership and quality of life, or quality of life and transformational leadership, or the leadership of the boss has no significant relationship. The null hypothesis has to be stated in the negative. Okay, and the alternative one is the opposite of the null, which means that if the null hypothesis stated no significant relationship, the alternative one states that they have indeed significant relationships. However, for the purpose of clarifying, or for the purpose of using inferential statistics, what we're going to use in testing the hypothesis is the null hypothesis. That is to be tested if it is worthy of rejection, or we fail to reject, that's why we accept the null hypothesis. So an example. So here's the topic. You have cancer and smoking. So a research question, is there a significant relationship between smoking and cancer? So your null hypothesis could be smokers are not more likely to develop cancer compared to non-smokers. And then the H1, or the alternative hypothesis, is that smokers are more likely to develop cancer than are non-smokers. Okay, and then afterwards, you're going to check the literature kung unsa man gyud ang giingon sa literature, ano yung sinasabi ng literature sa atin. Because these hypotheses will now make use of your literature in the past, if they are indeed warranted or not. And then you're going to use statistics further to validate your related literature. So next one, next step is we're going to ask, is this categorical variables, or let's check. For smoking, we have smoker and we have non-smoker. For cancer, for cancer, we have low and middle and high occurrence. So Ellie chat if the variables that we have, the SES and smoking, are ordinal values, nominal values, interval values, or ratio values. What's your answer? Marinig niyo pa ako?
Yes, sir.
Sige, ano daw ang answer natin? No answer natin. Smoking sa taas, smoking. Is this a nominal? Is this nominal? Is this ordinal? Is this interval? Or is this ratio? No, wala mang magsagot, oy. Kung walang magsagot, hindi ako mag-proceed. Sige, ano yung smoking? You can chat me privately if you're ashamed to answer with if you are ashamed to share your answer with everyone, so you can do it privately. Will not judge you for that. Okay, it seems na walang sumasagot. I cannot proceed to the next topic if in case you don't know how to what. Someone answered ratio. Private lang pala. Okay, sa private pala kayo sasagot. Okay, so the correct answer is it's a nominal variable because it takes a binary form, non-smoker and smoker. How about SES? Is it a nominal, a ratio, an ordinal, or an interval? Okay, kindly chat me in privately if you want to, please. Ratio, ordinal. Sige. Ano pa? More answers. Dalawa pa yung sumasagot. B. Ano yung B? Ratio. Okay, ratio. C, ano yung C? C is ordinal. Okay, the correct answer is ordinal. It's an ordinal variable considering that it follows an order. Low, middle, high. Okay, so in this case, what kind of statistical analysis is, what kind of statistical analysis are we going to use? What kind of inferential statistics? Non-parametric or parametric? Check it out. Okay. The correct answer is it's non-parametric because they are categorical by nature. So nominal and ordinal variables have to be treated using non-parametric statistics. In fact, the kind of statistical analysis that we do here is cross-tabulation using Pearson chi-square. So here's chi-square. So it's the most common non-parametric test used to test for association between categorical variables, used to test the difference between observed and expected proportions. So the larger the chi-square value, the more the numbers in the table differ from those you would expect if there would be no association. So chi-square computes the strength of the association between smoking and SES. So the limitation of chi-square is that expected values must be equal to or larger than 5. Kasi kapag napakamaliit ng values na kinakapture natin, of course, our chi-square test will fail. So let's test for association. So nakita natin that low SES, 38.9%, middle SES is 20.3%, high SES is 26.1%. Nakita natin that the Pearson chi-square here has a value of 2.63 with a degree of freedom of 2, and the asymptotic significance or the p-value is 0.268, which is greater than 0.05. Now, the question, is there a significant association or not significant association? The chat box, please. Significant, not significant. Chat in the chat box privately. Insignificant or non-significant, okay? Non-significant. Very good. Why? Because again, the test of significance is that if the p-value or the significance value or the sig value should have a p less than 0.05. In this case, it's greater than 0.05. That means there seems to be no association between smoking and SES. Okay, so So there's an alternative to chi-square. So we have Fisher's exact test. So it is based on exact probabilities. It is used with expected count of less than 5 cases in each cell. And it's used with 2 by 2 contingency table. However, this is very rare. I usually don't use this in tests of association, especially on categorical variables with known associations. So for example, your your smoking habits or non-smoker baka or smoker baka correlated with your occurrence to lung diseases. Yes or no? So of course, obvious kayo siya. May correlate na to. So kung na kay 2 by 2 categories or 2 ka-categories sa imuhang isa ka variable, 2 pagka-categories ng another variable, the chi-square has an alternative for that and we call that as Fisher's exact test. Okay? Mariani, kung positive or negative ba ka sa lung cancer versus kung smoker o non-smoker ka. So in this case, we can see na katulong mga positive, 11.5% of that is smoker. Kunya, katong mga non-smoker po nga na ay lung cancer, positive sa lung cancer, 1.3% lang. Kung tanawan nato, or if in case we're going to look at this, napakalaki ng variance, diba? So we're going to check the Fisher's exact test. Titingnan natin if it has a significance. So the value of the P is 0.046. Is this significant or not significant? Very good, it's significant. So when I say significant, that means there seems to be an association between your lung cancer occurrence and smoking, or those who smoke has probabilities, higher probabilities to get positive results in lung cancer compared to those who are non-smokers. Okay? So these groups differ? So titingnan natin, for smokers, we have 25.1846 as a mean score. Ang BMI nila, ang non-smokers is 26.2228. So we have a standard deviation of 5.27 for smokers, and we have 5.47 for non-smokers. However, the number of categories smokers is 26, while there are 79 non-smokers. So the sample size is quite imbalanced. So there seems to be non-smoker, in every smoker na isa, may tatlong non-smoker. Yan ang ratio natin. However, their BMI is compared here, and we can see that even though there is a close ang mga values, it seems that those non-smokers weigh heavily or have higher BMI compared with those who are smokers. Let's continue. So we have an unpaired t-test or student's t-test that was introduced by William Gossett, who was lived from 1876 to 1937. So according to William Gossett, the unpaired t-test or the student's t-test is the most frequently used statistical test. So it is used when there are 2 independent groups, or ang student's t-test, or ginatawag po nato na siya o t-test for independent samples. Kanang hilig kita magkumpara og duha. Asa may ang kuan ba ang ang intelligence scores ba is higher sa male compared sa female or female compared sa male? Basta duha gani atong i-compare, students t-test or t-test for independent samples. So the unpaired t-test or students t-test is a test for a difference between 2 groups. So tingani ang pagka-question ani. So is the difference in the sample means due to their natural variability or to a real difference between the groups in the population? Ano siya ang gina-address yung question sa test of difference for test for a difference between groups. Now, your outcome variable or ang imong i-analyze ani nga data should be an interval or ratio variable. Okay? It should be continuous by nature. It should be like temperatures, intelligence scores, stress scores, leadership perception scores, corruption index, budget, anything that is measurable in terms of numbers. So someone's chatting. Okay. Okay? So here's an example. Assumptions of normality, homogeneity of variance, and independence of observations are required, which means it's what? Parametric or non-parametric? It's parametric. So for example, we're going to compare the BMI of smokers with those non-smokers. Now, the BMI of smokers is 25.18. And then for the non-smokers, we have 26.22. Now, we're going to check whether or not it's significant. So, titingnan natin ang t-test value. The t, based on the equal variances assumed, is negative 0.846 with a sig value of 0.400. Is this significant or insignificant? If you remember that the sig value is 0.400, it's greater than 0.05, which means that the significant difference between there is no significant difference on the BMI of smokers and non-smokers because the T ratio is negative 0.846 with a P value or a sig value which is greater than 0.05. And for it to become significant, it has to have a T ratio large enough to have a P value or significance value less than 0.05. So in this case, it's not significant. That means kung hindi significant ang difference, they're almost the same. And makita nato nga ang BMI sa smoker o sa non-smoker, they're just the same. So do these groups differ? So titingnan natin. T-test man to ganina, so tulo na taka categories karon. So ang ato ang gamiton ani is different na, dili na t-test. So for non-smokers, we have 26.22 ang ilang BMI. For light smokers, we have 26.1765. For heavy smokers, we have 23.3111. So when you say light smoker, that's less than 1 pack a day. For heavy smoker, it's greater than 1 pack a day. So 3 naman siya, nag-compare ka naman og tulo ka groups, we're going to use not t-test for independent samples, but we're going to use one-way analysis of variance, or f-test. So 3 or more independent groups are being compared. For example, you're going to compare the accounting achievement test of 3 universities, or 3 regions, or you're going to compute or to determine which among these courses are stressed. No? Business versus accountancy versus psychology. So if that's your intention, then you're going to use F-test or analysis of variance. So a test for a difference between groups. So same yapon ang inquiry. Is the difference in sample means due to their natural variability or to a real difference between the groups in the population? And in the outcome, you still need to use interval or ratio variables because one-way analysis of variance or F-test is a parametric test. And assumptions of normality, homogeneity of variance, and independent observations, these are the assumptions of parametric statistics. So we're going to check. No? So the F-test reveals the following. So an F-test reveals an F value of 1.185 with a sig value or a P value that is 0.310. Is this significant or not significant? Answer. So the correct answer for this is not significant still, because the p-value of the f is greater than 0.05. And for it to be significant, it has to be less than that. Okay? Now, dili na ta sa test of relationship. No? So, normally ang pinaka-exciting kasi relasyon ng atong compute. Okay? So, is there a relationship between the variables? As you can see, you can check that they are numbers. No? They are actually whole numbers, and you can check that the number of cigarettes consumed is tested for relationship with the BMI. Okay. Okay, next one. So a test of relationship, the most common parametric test of relationship is the Pearson's correlation, or the Pearson product moment correlation coefficient, which was espoused or which was introduced by Carl Pearson. So Pearson's correlation measures the degree of relationship between two variables. So assumptions, variables are normally distributed. Again, it has to be parametric. No? So relationship is linear. Dapat na kay ma-establish na linear relationship based sa imuhang related literature. And then both variables are measured on the interval or ratio scale. Okay? And variables are measured on the same subjects. Paano mo siya ingani nga variable, kuan po mo siya anading nga data for this variable sa same gyapon nga tao. So we have two types of relationships. We have three types of relationships, sorry. So we have the perfect positive correlation, which means that they are 100% related and both of them are positive variables, which means an increase of this variable could also lead to an increase of this another variable when tested for influence. Kung perfect negative correlation, that means toxic na siya, biyain na siya. Anyway, a perfect negative relationship is that when you increase this variable, it can also cause an absolute decrease of another variable of the same level. And next one, ang pinakasakit sa tanan, Y relation or no correlation, which means that when you correlated these variables, the R value of Pearson R is 0, as in none, which means that the two variables being correlated that are not related by statistics are independent with one another. So di gid sila magtakbo. Yun yung kung gagamitan natin yan ng hugot, yan yung pinagtagpo pero hindi tinadhana. But in this case, hindi sila pinagtagpo, hindi din sila itinadhana, wala pa silang relasyon. So that's the third type of relationship, and that can be tested in Pearson R, especially in the scatter plot. Okay, so let's test for the relationship. For one, i-correlate na to ang BMI with the number of cigarettes. As you can see, there is a negative correlation based on the Pearson correlation of negative 0.169, and the p-value or the sig value is 0.410. Can you tell me if it's significant or not significant relationship? Now by significant relationship or what? Very good. No? So the correct answer is there is no significant relationship. Wala sila relasyon. Because the p-value is, again, greater than 0.410, which makes it insignificant or non-significant. And what happens is that what we need is to establish significant relationship having a p-value or a sig value less than 0.05. Okay, let's continue. So ito yung form ng data natin for number of cigarettes and BMI. Makikita natin na meron tayong outlier here. The outlier pulls the efficacy of the relationship. And ito kasi is sa scatter plot, if in case may relationship talaga siya, dapat itong mga values na ito should cluster around the mean. In this case, it didn't cluster, no, ang lalayo niya. So the standard deviation for this should be very high kasi malayo ito from the mean. Ito, malayo talaga siya with the rest of the other variables. So we consider this as outlier. And outliers usually are eliminated in the data set because they are not sharing the same characteristic of the sample. Okay, how do we interpret results? Okay, the size of the p-value does not indicate, oh, wait, this is a disclaimer. Therefore, this is actually a disclaimer. So the size of the p-value does not indicate the importance of the result. So sometimes, may mga estudyante ako who will say na, uy, kanang sir, maulit yung paper namin kasi non-significant yung result sa amin. So, ipa-sub sa panel namin or ipa-change sa panel namin yung thesis namin kasi dapat daw significant. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't mean na insignificant ang result niya. Magiging useless ang inyong study. So the size of the p-value or the significance of the p-value doesn't even indicate the importance of your study or the result. So take note of that, no? Importante na we can still justify the result of the statistical analysis because if we fail to reject the null hypothesis because the result is not significant, that means that they are not actually related. And that there might be other variables that could be related, and that our related literature could have established, no, the related literature who says na meron siyang significant relationship are not supportive or doesn't support our findings. But actually, it deviates from those findings. Ganyan lang, no? So statistics will not be the sole basis of the disapproval of your study, but rather it is your idea or capability to explain them that is more important. So appropriate interpretation of statistical tests. So dapat i-interpret natin yung group differences. If in case we're going to use a t-test or one-way analysis of variance, we should identify which are the groups, which are higher and which are lower. And that even though it's significant, titingnan pa rin natin kung sino ang mas mababa or sino ang mas mataas. Yung significant difference test is just one way of saying that this one is better, significantly better than the other. But if in case non-significant, merong grupo dyan na mas mataas pa rin. So it's kung ang score is 26 and the other group is ang score is 22, hindi man siya ganun kalayo pero mas mataas pa din yung isa. Kaya lang our sample size is limited enough para maka-reject tayo ng null hypothesis. So our recommendation for that is that we're going to expand our sample size so that we can check whether or not this non-significant result will become significant or it remains to be insignificant. Kasi ang sabi ng related literature may significant difference pero sa atin wala, di ba? Eh kasi naman 20, 30 respondents lang kino-compare natin. Might as well that we get 1,000 respondents or 1,200 respondents and check whether or not this is still the same result. So careful tayo sa group differences natin. Okay, next one is association relationship. So not all that is related can cause changes to the other variable. So hindi naman ang relation, may mga different classes kasi ng relationships. May very strong relationship, may weak relationship, may moderate relationship, at saka may very low relationship. Even if it's significant, the strength of the relationship also is a factor in terms of interpretation of results. Kasi a strong relationship among variables could also indicate that something is wrong with your measurement or analysis. Especially kapag ang variables kay 90% pataas related. So we call that spurious correlation. Spurious correlation by Gujarati 2005 is indicative of wrong measurements of the variables. So sakto na yung kay mga 0.468 or 46.8% related, 56.3% related, 60.6% related. Okay na yan. Because those correlations, for as long as you have related literature to support them, then you're good to go. And then lastly, correlation does not imply causation or causality. So cause and effect relationship is different with relationship. Cause and effect relationship is that when you increase your cause, what happens to the effect? Will it increase or will it decrease? So in that case, correlation using Pearson R is not sufficient. In fact, Pearson product moment correlation or the Pearson correlation is just a preliminary test if in case magre-regression ka or mag-perform ka ng multiple or simple linear regression. Simple or multiple linear regression is the test for causation or causality. So, kailangan natin gawin is i-establish muna natin kung may relasyon ng mga variables or wala. Kung wala, stop. We don't have to perform regression kasi useless. But if in case meron, magre-regression tayo. Now, final word, no? Kasi we had covered the basic descriptive statistics, the types of statistical analysis, the intermediate statistics using having those non-parametric and parametric ones. But extreme caution, kasi yung kaya ko lang i-offer sa inyo na medyo advanced is a simple discussion of Pearson product moment correlation because basically you're still in the undergrad. I find it too soon if in case magdi-discuss tayo ng higher statistics because you might nauseate or you might suffer kung epistaxis if in case I will be discussing eigenvalues or heteroscedasticity or multicollinearity. So those are reserved for graduate studies and I hope that I can teach you in that particular aspect some years after you graduate. But one thing is for sure, no? Kasi accounting or the accountancy is a profession that is seen to be fundamentally honest. We have to be honest in form and in substance. And the good thing about you is that you already know that ethical practices has to be absolute in accountancy or in accounting. Same with statistics. I just want to impart this to you. Don't ever lie with statistics. I hope that you appreciate statistics in the course of writing your research and in the course of appreciating your accounting profession. And I hope that someday you're going to integrate statistics and data analysis when you engage in the accountancy or the accounting or auditing profession or practice. So if you have any questions, please ask me. No? So I want to see your individual faces so that at least we can say hi if in case we see each other in green coffee, tutorials, or if in case magkasabay ito sa high priority bus system, if in case meron. Or baka naman we can just meet along the way na tapos naging speaker na pala. So please you ask questions with your face, with your camera on. So thank you very much. No?
So thank you so much, sir, for the discussion about statistical tests. And so guys, this is the time for you to ask questions to sir.
Kaya sungguh-sungguh ba yan, Sige, manawag daw ta Drebe. Manawag ta example na mga kanina ko pa ito napapansin sa akin si Edsel de Sono. Okay, question, Edsel. Ala.
Wait lang, sir.
Oy, dapat may question ka kasi magka-quiz tayo ng statistics. Sige na lang, kaya murag itago si Edsel ulaw. Let's call in si Mr. Carlo Daniel Rebolios. Sir.
Hello, sir.
Any questions?
I don't, sir. I don't have questions.
That's very surprising. Sige. Kasi may taga UMD gusto diri. Let's ask from Ateneo na lang. Chantal Kim Marie. Kasi nakikita ko yung mga senior high school uniform ng Ateneo dito. So tatanungin natin yung taga Ateneo. Hi, Chantal. Chantal, are you there? Sige na lang, si Ma'am Jamaica Dumaluan na lang. Hi, Ma'am.
Tingin ko mahihiya yata sila, sir.
Hansa daw?
Baka nahihiya yata mag-ask ng question, sir.
Mahiya sa akin? Sige. Okay, very good. May nagtanong. Privately lang. Okay lang nga. Sir, tanong ko lang po if necessary po ba na may hypothesis ang research? Very good question. not all research has hypothesis. So, gagamit lamang tayo ng hypothesis kung unang-una dapat quantitative yung research natin. Second one is kung we're using inferential statistics. Ano naman ang ibig sabihin ng inferential statistics? Dapat you're going to establish significant relationships, significant difference, significant associations, or significant associations. Association, relationship, influence, and difference. Yun ang usual na statistical analysis for you. So if in case ang intention mo lang is to compare the percentage change or magde-describe ka lang ng level or mag-profile ka lang ng respondents mo or gagawa ka ng qualitative research, hypothesis is not. Okay, someone asked, for JVS lang po in conducting a research in college, is it necessary to get a statistician to compute the data we're going to gather or we can just do it? Actually, no, kung kayo yung under sa akin, I will really encourage you to do your statistical analysis. That's why my students, when they do research under me, nagkakandak ako ng klase sa kanila for like 1 or 2 sessions. And I am expecting that they do the statistical analysis themselves. In fact, I really wanted to have a workshop for you, but it seems that most of you are offline or hindi siya face-to-face. That's why it's difficult for me to know or determine kung successful ba yung magiging workshop ko kung wala naman ako nakikita tao. But basically, it's okay that you analyze, but you know, there are rules in our academe that we need to follow. Unang-una, even if you are capable of doing it, sometimes our institutions sometimes impose or require us to have a formal statistician who will check our statistical analysis. So if in case naman meron kayong statistician sa loob ng university ninyo or colleges ninyo, that should be fine. So you still have to comply. Even if you know how to compute, you just have to show your computations para at least naman nakikita ng statistician that you also do your part. However, if in case wala kayong statistician sa inyo, maghahanap pa kayo, so at least meron na kayong contact, di ba? That would be an advantage for you. Pero basically, it's a good opportunity for you to do your own statistical analysis. So that's a very great question. You need to just read and then watch some YouTube videos, and if in case, kung ako ang statistician, tapos meron na kayong statistical analysis, then ipapacheck nyo na lang sa akin para hindi na ako ma-stress, that's a good thing for me. Anyway, I'm still paid the same thing. Okay, somebody asked me, Sir, representing UIC po, Sir, medyo mahiya po ako mag-ask with mic and cam, so chat na lang po. It's fine, no worries. With regards to the design study, how can a researcher know if yung design study is effective or in relation with the research? And is it the best way to what's the best way to determine the right study? So you know, the research designs for your study are actually quite different. It could be one single approach or it could be multiple approaches. For one, descriptive design is one. So if in case you wanted to measure or characterize your samples or your variables, descriptive research design is okay. If in case you wanted to establish relationship, you're actually going to use the correlational research design. If in case you're going to use experimental, so an experimental research design is also good. If in case you're dealing with chemicals, you're dealing with bacteria, you're dealing with medicines or pharmacological research, but if in case you're dealing with effectiveness of an intervention with 2 classes, so that's a quasi-experimental research. Now, your design can actually dictate what statistical analysis you do have. So I want you to read research designs, because each of the definitions of research design will give you an idea on what statistical analysis you're going to do. Magandang question ito. So, unang-una, hindi lamang kayo dapat mag-dwell sa isang research design. Kasi kung marami kayong research problem, pwede kasi na ang gagamitin ninyong approach is quantitative and qualitative. So for example, may survey kayo and you establish a characterization of respondents, relationships. So the quantitative approach yan. So quantitative, descriptive, and correlational research designs. Now, meron kayong qualitative component because you wanted to establish the emerging themes of the interviews brought by your interviews of selected na respondents. That's a qualitative approach. Now, under qualitative approach, meron tayong different qualitative data analysis. So we could use the phenomenology, we could use single or multiple case studies, we can use um, ethnography. It can be undercover ethnography or online or ethnic studies or ethnomethodology. Ang dami-dami. So from that, makikita mo kung ano yung problem mo, alam mo na kung paano, ano yung mga research problems na gusto mong i-answer. That will be your guide in determining what kind of design you have. And finally, you're going to answer, you're going to use those methodologies or designs to answer what statistical analysis you're going. Sino yung nag-voice up? Okay, sige. Sir, can qualitative questionnaires be quantitative? Actually, iba yung qualitative data, iba din naman yung qualitative research methodology. No? So qualitative data are actually under the quantitative research design. Qualitative data lang, considering na hindi naman kasi numbers ang categories. No? So they are names or they are choices or they are texts. So they are qualitative data. So I might interpret this as an instrument used under the qualitative research method. And you're asking if it's possible to be quantitative. Hindi po siya possible because unang-una, your instrument to be used under the qualitative research methodology is not a questionnaire, but it's usually in the form of interview guides or focus group discussion guides, as well as observation journals. So hindi yan numeric data. So qualitative research design makes use of qualitative data analysis. A quantitative survey at that also use quantitative analysis. Pero if in case you're going to use mixed method, kung gusto niyo very ambitious yung research niyo, gusto niyo dapat quantity and quality lang nasa paper, so you can do both. You can do both. Sir, what are the common topics in accounting research po? Okay, ito yung highlight kasi na dapat ng ating ng ating session. However, I'm not an expert in accounting. So how do you determine what are the emerging issues in accounting? Unang-una, review your curriculum. Your curriculum has subjects in there, major subjects in there, and each of those major subjects are offered for a reason. They are offered for a reason because they have the industries need them. And those industries surely have problems along the way. No, in terms of cost accounting, cost management, internal audit, even internal audit is laden with a lot of problems that are very, very researchable. So ano yung magiging basis natin in proposing for an accounting research? Number one, tingnan natin yung curriculum natin. Second one, titingnan natin ang ating respective institutions in terms of research agenda. Yung research agenda naman ang ating basis in checking whether or not our interest as an individual and our interest as accountancy students align with the research expectations of the university. So for UM, we have research agenda and students have to conform to that because our research agenda are operationalized by our faculty members. And our faculty members are considered experts in the field. So kinahanglan, dito tamo align. And usually our basis in proposing accounting research stems from industry needs. Second one, from curriculum issues. And third one is most common pressing issues that is available in the public domain. Nung una, makikita mo naman yung mga issues natin in transparency and accountability in public service, especially for state insurance. No, there are accounting methodologies that were violated at that, and that could be a source of different or multitudes of problems. Now, those problems need research input. inputs so that we will become instrumental in crafting a policy. So yun. Kasi for one, I'm not an expert in accounting and I cannot give you exact studies that could actually be workable in you individually. So I could propose for you to, as a group, to ask your research agenda from your institutions. And second one is check your prospectuses for your curriculum. Okay, question. Sir, what are the common, okay. Sir, how do you determine the right sample size? Mura makagdangutan, parang nagtatanong ka sa akin, how do you determine if he's the right one for me? Anyway, just a joke. Okay, very good question. Let's proceed with sample size computations. Kasi nakalimutan ko itong i-share. Sige, sample size computation tayo. Okay, share ko siya. Okay, so you're given a chance to do a survey with your groupmates. And then your target respondents are accountancy students from different universities. And you want to determine ilan yung mga accountancy students natin. You found out that amongst all accounting schools offering accountancy, we have a total of like 2,354 students. Okay, question. Kaya nyo ba i-survey lahat ng tao, lahat ng accountancy students at this point? They are 2,354 and we have COVID pandemic right now. Is this possible and feasible to do? If in case may survey tayo. So, okay. Oops, wrong. No, sir, di June. Basically, you cannot do that. Even 1,000, dili gyapon siya kaya. So, a good thing is that 2,354 students is considered as the universe. Now, if in case we're talking here of a research conducted in the context of Davao City, the 2,354 students as the population of all accountancy students is considered as the universe or the population. And we only need to get a sample scientifically chosen or selected from that population as our unit of analysis. So there are specific na softwares available. I think I can share some. Okay. Ang pinaka gusto ko na link na i-chat ko sa inyo, and this actually has been my basis in computation is, hindi ko naman makita yung chat. Okay. Wala na naman yung chat. Eto, okay. So this one, yeah, that's SurveyMonkey sample size calculator. Okay, so I'll be sharing to you again the SurveyMonkey sample size calculator. Kasi that's very scientific in the first place. So for example, you have 2,354 na respondents. So ang gagawin ko, i-enter ko dito 2,354. Tapos gusto ko kasi, ang pinaka-basic or default kasi is confidence level should be set at 95% unless you're doing medical studies, and margin of error should be at least 5%. If you want to increase the margin of error, that's discouraged. But if in case you want to engage in medical studies, no, that it has to be like 1 to 3%. But for default, 5% sa usual surveys. So identify 95, 5%, and the sample size it's not actually showing. 5%. So you only need 331 respondents at that. However, ito yung online calculator natin ha. But if you want to engage in dirty work, there is a formula for that. So we have a formula. I'm going to share the formula to you. Here's the formula. J. Share natin, no? So we have, I'm going to insert an equation here. So we have small n equals, pupunta tayo dito sa fraction. Okay, small n equals big N over 1 plus big N tapos E squared. So that's the formula for computing the sample size, where small n equals the sample that you need. Big N is the population or the universe. And then 1 is a constant integer. And E equals the error term, marginal error. Okay, again, we're going to compute the sample size using this conventional method, using the Yamane's formula. It's small n equals big N over 1 plus big N E squared. So here's the thing that you're going to do. Now, we're going to compute that using Excel. So we have a big N of N equals 2,354. So what will be our small n? Diba? Yan ang hahanapin natin. So basically, we're going to implement that by dividing 2,354 divided by 1 plus the value of your n again, 2,354, open 0.05, square its multiply in itself 0.05, close and close. So the correct answer is 2,354 divided by 1 plus, it should be like, or we're going to just multiply this, 2,354. Okay, wrong. Times 0.05, close. Yes. So the correct answer is, it has to be rounded. The correct answer is 342. So you need 342 respondents instead. Now, here's the catch. Remember that these 2,354 schools are coming from 5 universities. So you have Uni 1, and the total number of students, accountancy students from them is 2,354. So what if, gagawin natin is, we have around 1,056 students from this one. This one is 250 students. We have 436 students. We have 100 students, and the rest is minus some. Okay, we have 500 strong students here. Now, remember that there are 2,354 students here. And we're concerned kung ilan sa 342 na sample natin, which is ang ating sample size, ilan dapat ang kukunin from Uni 1, Uni 2, Uni 3, Uni 4, and Uni 5. So we already computed using Yamana's formula the sample size that is needed. We're now concerned with computing the sample size which will be taken from these schools. Kaya dapat, kung ang pinakadako nga school, yan yung pinakamarami din ang sample, di ba? So, how do we determine that? We're going to determine that by doing this. Kailangan i-determine natin ang percentage of representation ng schools na ito sa total universe. So what we're going to do is divide that one with the total number of students of the universe. So it should be translated, it should be multiplied to 100. Kung gusto niyo 100, basically in terms of decimal points, ito siya. So 45% dapat 45% ng population, ng total population is ng accountancy students is coming from this university. So 11% comes from Uni 2, 19% from Uni 3, 4% from Uni 4, and 22% from Uni 5. Now, dapat kung 45% siya sa total universe, dapat 45% po sa atong sample is ikan delay. So what we're going to do is going to multiply the percentage of representation times 342 as a sample size. Then copy that. And here's the final result. So instead of surveying 1,056 respondents, what you're going to survey is just 153 from Uni 1, 36 from Uni 2, 63 from Uni 3, 15 from Uni 4, and 74 from Uni 5 because we only need 342 respondents to represent 2,354 accounting students. So did you get that? So again, if in case, very good, no? So very good. Anyway, this is recorded. But the easiest one, para hindi na tayo, the easiest one for us, instead of dwelling with this formula, we can just check yung SurveyMonkey na calculate, sample size calculator. And from that, you're going to distribute the sample size that we have here. We're going to check the percentage of representation of each of these universities or schools or regions or cities, and then kukuha tayo ng representative sample from their population. So that will become very easy. So manageable na siya. Instead of 2,354, we can just have 340. So that's the basic one. And believe me, that is a very scientific approach in determining your sample size. Now, may mo ana sa ako ang sir, pwede 100 lang, sir. Kaya lagko na ka ng 300. Now, when you have a quota of 100 or 50 only or 200 or even 300, may ka mo quota lang po 300, sir, it's actually a non-parametric sampling approach. And non-parametric sampling approach is not allowed for test of inference or inferential statistics. That's why you also need to be very careful in selecting your respondents because, you know, computing sample size is a prelude to correct statistical analysis and correct statistical outcomes. So, napag yun. I hope I answered your question, Miss someone who asked how do you determine the right sample size. And last, sir, what can you advise us, sir, with regards of making effective and relevant questionnaires for our research? Now, I would discourage you to make your own questionnaires. Basically, it doesn't work that way. As much as possible, if in case there are standard instruments available that you can use, you have to research those instruments. So I'm going to show you something. Sure. So if in case you wanted to, let's say, measure tayo, ito kasi yung pinakamadaling sample. So if in case you wanted to measure the personal entrepreneurial competencies of accountancy students, so of course, hindi pwede na TSL ang approach natin sa paggawa ng questionnaire. Alam niyo pa ng TSL, yung magagawa kayo ng questionnaire, tingin sa langit. Yun ba? Kung saka akong items natin, number 1, gwapa ko. Number 2, gwapa siya. Number 3, gwapa may tanan. Hindi yan ganoon. No? So, ang paggawa ng instrument is allowable. However, it has to be scientific, and the method of doing so requires advanced statistical skills, which you do not possess yet. So what you're going to do now is plainly to look for standard instruments that you can use to measure those variables. Say, personal, entrepreneurial competency. Ito ha, gamitin nyo ito talaga. Scale PDF. So, meron tayo ditong PDF na lalabas. So we might want to check this one and see kung meron ba siyang instrument. Usually at the last part, sample lang ito. Wala. So sample lang kasi ito. So hanapin natin talaga yung kompleto. Ito. Baka pwede. Baka andito. So hanapin natin. Usually hinahanap ko lang yung instruments ko, ina-adapt ko lang siya. So say iba na lang. Personality traits na lang. Personal. For example, this one, the most common for personality traits is Big 5 inventory. So, ang Big 5 inventory is meron siyang instrument. Andito. So, number 1, I see myself as someone who, number 1, is talkative. Ito yung instrument. If in case you wanted to measure job satisfaction. So, ang pinaka-common is the generic job satisfaction scale. You just have to cite sino ang author nito. And you can still use this actually if in case it's available. So, si McDonald and McIntyre ang pinakauna nag-propose. Ito, merong job satisfaction scale na this number of items, pwede siya. Meron din tayong the efficient implement of job satisfaction, the recovery, stress, work. Meron din tayong job satisfaction scale available here, but for some reason it's not loading anyway. Here, oops, may bayad. So, maghahanap talaga tayo ng bagong. So, for one, okay, so ito, meron tayong instrument here. So, it's not here. So, this one, job satisfaction scale, pwede ito. There are 20 items here under the job satisfaction scale. We can use this as a measure, so pwede siya. No? So basically, what I'm saying is that you can actually develop your own instrument, but I would strongly suggest that at your own level, you need to check whether there are instruments available that can actually just guide you in measuring your variables. Okay. Sige. So I think I answered some questions already in the Zoom group chat, and it's 3:30. So thank you very much once again, thank you very much for inviting me to talk about statistics. So na-late lang ako kanina kasi lumabas ako sa office. And you know naman, imagine my office is in DPT. And then, pero nasa area ako kanina, no? So pumunta ako ng DPT and then bumalik. So anyway, It's a pleasure to have shared what I learned from my humble beginnings in research. And if in case you want to to have a chat, for example, if in case you have your research inquiries and you need statistical analysis or something, feel free to ask. My email is already in my slides. And thank you very much for inviting me. And I hope to see you here in Davao City when the pandemic is over. Thank you and congratulations to the organizers of this event.
Okay, so thank you, sir, Garcia, for that substantial and fruitful discussion. Thank you talaga, sir. I hope na ating participants is marami silang natutunan and kanilang mga queries regarding research mostly are answered yan. Kasi tingin ko, as they progress their journey in research, they will encounter more questions and maybe they can, in the future, ask you, sir. Yan. So, binigay mo lang rin ang yung email, sir. So, um, habang nag-discuss si sir is bumalik talaga sa akin yung mga na-discuss ng aking mga professors noon second year college about statistics, interval, ratio, ordinal, and nominal. And babalik talaga tayo sa basics, guys, para ma-understand natin kung ano ang dapat nating gagawin sa research. So yan siya, guys. And yeah, kailangan talagang i-review kasi ang iba katulad mo, ANOVA, yan, di-discuss talaga ng teacher namin yan noon. Pearson and may mga ano pa rin, kakalimutan din na concepts. Kaya dapat i-review talaga natin, guys. Okay, so now that we are done with the open forum, now let's proceed now to the awarding of the certificates to our speaker. Tony? Okay, so the certificate of appreciation is presented to Dr. John Vianney Morcia for imparting his invaluable contribution as research speaker during the NFJP Academic Festival webinar on the topic Research Methodologies for Accounting Research held on August 30, 2020, given this 30th day of August 2020, signed by the Regional Council President, Claire Abigail F. Gonzalez, the Regional Vice President for Academics, Joshua Noel B. Chagan, yours truly, and the Regional Moderator, Sir Rick Nicholson Nalzaro, CPA. And so, thank you, sir. So, isa-send lang namin to, sir, sa yung email. And next, Tony.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this award. And I hope to engage with you in the future if in case you have specific needs. If given a chance to do a workshop with you, I would rather love workshops rather than this webinar. And it's really difficult. It really needs time and amount of effort to maintain your focus. It is very, very difficult topics for the rest of the day. So I hope I can get in touch with you if in case the pandemic is over, and I'm more concerned with making you learn fruitfully kung talagang face-to-face yung ating connection. So, thank you very much.
Sir, my second one, sir. So for the second certificate of appreciation, this is for the topic, Basic, Intermediate, and Statistical Application for Accounting Research. So yan, sir. So 2 certificates, sir, para sa inyo, sir. Thank you masyado, sir. And so guys, so I'm glad that you are here. So we are currently 62 participants, and thank you so much for being here until the end. And thank you, guys. And I hope that you have learned so much and you can use your learnings in your studies in the future. So guys, don't forget to answer the evaluation form that we will be giving out. Yan, so pinost na ni Carlo. And I hope that you will be honest in your evaluation in our event so that in the future, we can improve our service. Yan. So thank you, guys. And once again, I am Joshua Noel Bichagan, your host for this accounting research webinar. Thank you, guys, and thank you, sir, once again. Yes, sir. Ay, tama pala, sir. We should have picture. I forgot. Picture pala, sir, picture. So guys, i-on nyo pala yung camera for the picture. Camera muna, guys, camera. Picture. Yan, sige, picture tayo, ha.
nice. That's nice. That's nice.
For documentation tayo. Sige. Okay. So since hindi ko man mo-cover lahat, so mag-take ako ng 3 pictures guys tapos i-copy paste ko lang sa Paint. Okay. First shot, first batch. Okay, smile first batch. Si Trisha Vanes, yan. Full spin. Yan. First batch, 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, thank you first batch. Now let's go now to the second batch. Yan. Lang. Batch. Okay, second batch. Okay na ba yung cameras? Sige, mag-smile ah. Second batch. 1, 2, 3. Yan. Okay, marami ang naka-off cam pero sige lang. And last, the third batch. Ito, naka-off cam din sila. Pero sige lang. 1, 2, 3. Yan. So thank you guys, and I hope that you will be. We have still other webinars for tomorrow, and I hope that you will have the energy to go there. Thank you guys. God bless. Bye, sir. Yay.